very pleased to have Dale Swampy with me here today. Dale's the former CEO of the Samson Cree Nation, and he's currently the head of the National Coalition of Chiefs. That's 81 different chiefs who've locked arms with the goal of ending on-reserve poverty through the development of natural resources and commercial opportunities that create jobs and paychecks for their people. And this conversation is part of the series I'm putting together on what I call the gatekeeper economy, where here in Canada we can't get anything done anymore. We've had the transnational pipeline that would have taken oil from Alberta to St. John and ended our reliance on Saudi and Algerian oil. That was blocked by Trudeau. We lost the Northern Gateway pipeline, the Tech Frontier mine, over $150 billion of resource projects gone. We're now ranked 36th of 37 OECD nations on the delay time to get a permit to build anything in Canada. It takes 170 days longer to get a permit to build in Canada than in the United States of America. And we're fighting back against this gatekeeper economy. And so too is this great First Nations leader, Dale Swampy. Dale, you helped put together a coalition of 31 different First Nations communities and leaders as part of the Northern Gateway pipeline project that would have generated $2 billion for you and your people had it gone ahead. What was it like to find out that Prime Minister Trudeau had vetoed that pipeline without even talking to you?
Oh, it was terrible. And I think our chief said the Aboriginal Equity Partner Group tried to communicate with the federal government, after the court case completed, when we won the court case and were able to, we thought, proceed with the project. We were quite surprised when the Prime Minister went against the court case and made a political decision to cancel the pipeline on false pretenses that he assumed First Nations across the corridor of the pipeline had opposed it, which was wrong. 31 out of 40 communities that are within the corridor of the pipeline had approved it. Were willing to take on the risk as owners, and in the end, in 2016, had negotiated 33 1/3 ownership of the pipeline, over $2 billion worth of benefits over the 30-year operations of the pipeline, including long-term employment opportunities for environmental monitors, a guarantee from the funding partners, the 10 owners of the pipeline, which were 9 oil producers and Enbridge, the operator, that they would hire a president and CEO from a First Nation community in BC to run Northern Gateway. And that guarantee was something that the chiefs saw as a real partnership, a real commitment to working with the communities in that organization. We were in the process of negotiating with 4 different communities to be the end communities handling the terminal project. We had an agreement with a group of First Nation communities and community members taking over the tugboat requirements. We had over $700 million worth of environmental studies that were going to go on for 10 years during construction and after operations that were going to be given into the First Nation terminal host, something that leaders like I forget his name now. Sorry. But something that leaders didn't realize that was available because the environmentalists told them, don't talk to them.
Right. Well, we're told by the media and by the Trudeau government that all First Nations are against resource development. And in this case, there are 3/4 of the affected First Nations were in favor. $2 billion of benefits, $700 million worth of environmental studies, and a First Nation CEO of the entire project, 1/3 ownership of the assets, and long-term jobs and wages for First Nations youth that would have lifted them out of the poverty. And I think it's ironic because they were always told about the constitutional obligation to consult with First Nations people, which is obviously a good thing. But in this case, you weren't consulted. The Prime Minister violated the Charter of Rights, your Charter of Rights, uh, um, to be consulted on natural resource decisions. And he just, with a stroke of a pen, wiped out $2 billion of opportunity. Now, we're always told, Dale, that there are going to be these green jobs that will replace natural resource jobs. So we'll all be making solar panels and windmills and harnessing the power of rainbows and whatever else. So have you been given $2 billion worth of so-called green jobs to replace the Prime Minister's canceled Northern Gateway pipeline?
Oh, far from it. I think we're in the very, very early stages of developing greenhouse projects, green projects. I think when you look at the numbers and the statistics, it's the oil and gas industry that has contributed more money than any other group in this country to green energy programs. Wind and solar has been something that they've taken seriously and have invested in, although it doesn't provide much in terms of our ability to be able to employ our people on reserves. We think the resource that is most prevalent within our society is our natural resources, oil and gas, timber, mining, and so forth. And we want to take advantage of that. We want to be able to be a part of it, something we haven't done in the 150 years that Canadians have been harvesting their natural resource. Now that the ESG regulations have come into place and most corporations are willing to give us the kind of equity position in projects, now when that finally gets to us, all of a sudden we have all of these permit problems, these regulatory problems that are going to be hindering our ability to be able to participate in projects and get them approved. Got UNDRIP
Right.
legislation that's coming in that's defining FPIC, which could be interpreted as anything now with the legal environment that exists right now, with the environmentalists having so much money to fund the legal challenges against our major projects. Nothing's going to be developed.
But the environmentalists say that they're here to help you and your people. Has that been your experience?
Well, no. I mean, one of the chiefs of our group had said, one of the past chiefs have said, back in the 70s and 80s, the environmentalists came in and ruined our hunting and fishing rights. We could no longer hunt and fish, and then they were gone. They don't consider us important. Now they're trying to destroy our oil and gas, and they'll be gone as soon as that's destroyed as well. And meanwhile, we're still here in abject poverty. And what are we going to do about our poverty? We're isolated. We're in remote areas of this country. We're like prisoners in our own land. We got to be able to do something. That's why we're forging forward, trying to get a piece of the pie, so to speak, and get a piece of the natural resource industry that the Liberals had funded a study in 1996 that recommended that the government give 30% of the natural resource industries to the communities, to the First Nation communities. Whatever happened in Alaska with the 13 tribal nations out there has succeeded. They've been giving 50% of all the natural resources in that state, and have been giving 500 million acres of lands. And that was an opportunity for them that they could walk out of too. They could have sold that land if they wanted to. And since 1971, none of those tribes have sold any of their lands.
Right. They've built prosperous communities and created jobs for their people. Are there success stories in Canada like that one, where people in First Nations communities have prospered through resource development? Dale, can you give us any examples?
Well, all you have to do is look at Fort McKay First Nation. They have zero unemployment. They're one of the highest, richest communities in Canada. Their average income is between $90,000 and $100,000 a year. Wow. It took time for them to be able to transition into the oil and gas industry. It took them, decades to be able to do that, but they did it. And now
Wow.
they have a flourishing economy out there. And that's going to be hindered by this big environmental movement that we have right now.
So zero unemployment, incomes of $90,000 to $100,000 a year, eliminating poverty, uplifting communities, making them self-sufficient. Why do you think, given that the Fort McKay example, the example you gave in Alaska, the other examples of industrious and entrepreneurial First Nations communities like the ones we see across the Okanagan, for example, these communities are defeating poverty, providing their people with opportunity. Why do you think Ottawa wants to block all of these opportunities when the politicians and bureaucrats here in the capital tell us that they're determined to bring Aboriginal communities out of poverty?
Well, I think it's a huge movement of misinformation promoted by a billion-dollar a day environmental movement, and they have so much resources, so many people working for them that they pass along a lot of information that's just not true. Information about First Nation communities saying that we all are opposed to environmental to natural resource development, which is wrong. We're part of this land, and we've been part of this land for millennia, and we should be the ones that develop the natural resource industry. We should be the ones that are protecting the environment, because it's something that we're not going to move away from. The 13 tribes in Alaska, they're not selling their land, and we won't sell our land either. We're going to be here all the time, and it's frustrating, and we want to be able to get our voice out there. We want to be able to send the message across Canada that you have First Nation communities who want to be a part of this economy, who want to be supporting everything that Canada is all about. And the only way we're going to do that is to participate in the biggest industry in that Canada has, and that's the natural resource industry.
How many First Nations people work in that industry?
Well, a study in 2016 showed that there were 12,000 self-identified Indigenous workers in the oil and gas industry, and now we think that figure is up to 14,000. It's not going down, it's going up. People are starting to work, they're starting to get out there and see the kind of successes that Fort McKay has had and other communities, and they want a piece of the pie. So young men, young women are moving towards STEM programs and moving towards working in an industry that they know now that they can be a part of. In the past, they weren't part of it.
But all we hear about in the media are those who are opposed. So why aren't we hearing more from the 14,000 people who are earning wages in the resource sector?
Well, the ENGOs are really picking at our community. They're picking on our young people that feel like they're disenfranchised from the society. They're looking for a fight, so they ask them to come out onto these protest lines and these protest lines on railroad tracks and so forth, risking their criminal records to do that. And they have the time and they get their resources from the ENGOs, but it's because they're unemployed, right? And the people that really support the industry, the 14,000 self-identified Indigenous workers in the oil and gas industry right now, they're not, on TV fighting for their industry because they're working, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they got jobs that they gotta stay at. They got families they gotta feed, and they come home at night and see the TV and the news and shake their heads at their own fellow First Nation people arguing against a industry that feeds their children's, mouths and pays for their homes and so forth. So it's something we have to get a message to across Canada, and that is that First Nations are part of the natural resource industry, want to be part of the natural resource industry, and want Canada to stop putting up all these roadblocks.
Well, I think it's part of the war on the working people of this country, that those who are too busy getting out of bed in the morning, going to work, getting a job, paying into the system, like those 14,000 First Nations oil and gas workers of whom you spoke, but like millions of others across the country of every walk of life, they are too busy working to be politically active. They are too busy paying the taxes and supporting our communities to get politically involved. And therefore, it is only the well-funded and privileged elite who are getting their voices heard, those with a lot of money and a lot of political power, who take from the rest of the population that run the country. I think of a lot of these so-called environmental financiers. They're very wealthy and they have lots of money. They don't have to worry about putting food on the table. They don't put work boots on in the morning. They don't have the same concerns that people in your community or in working class communities across this country have. And it's very easy for them to get on their planes and fly over the oil sands or fly over a mine in Northern Ontario and look down on the people who work there. But it's for the people who are on the ground there, that's a livelihood. It's the pride of a job. It's the hope for the future. So we need to fight for them. And I want to thank you for doing that. You're standing up for your people and giving them the hope for a brighter future. Right now, I think what's happening is that a lot of politicians and bureaucrats in Ottawa want to block First Nations from developing to keep them in a position where Ottawa is in control. It's the old paternalistic colonial mentality that puts the politicians in Ottawa in charge of the lives of First Nations communities that has failed again and again and again for hundreds of years, and yet we keep doing it. When the goal should be to let you keep your own resources to earn not just the wages, but also the royalties and the tax revenues of those resources, and then make your own decisions about how you want to live your life. You should be masters of your own destiny instead of having the political, paternalistic governmental leaders in Ottawa dominate. Do you agree with that overall approach?
The fact that the federal government's even looking at an act like or a legislation like UNDRIP suggests that they think that First Nations should be involved in the natural resource industry. And we think the only way we can do that is to actually get a piece of the natural resource industry, get ownership, whether it's 15, 20, 25%, 50% like the Alaska Nations got in 1971. That will bring, we think, proper legislation in and proper certainty for major project developments and get our economy built in such a way that we're able to employ our people and get our people out of poverty, not just First Nation people, but Canadians overall.
I agree wholeheartedly. Well, I look forward to seeing your work. I understand you're going to testify at an industry committee hearing on this gatekeeper economy that's holding back so many First Nations, but so many other people across the country. The goal should be to unleash the power of the free enterprise system of commerce, of trade and enterprise. That is entirely consistent with the spirit and the history of First Nations here in the Americas. And I look forward to hearing more from you as you champion your people. And hopefully the politicians in Ottawa will get out of your way and let you succeed in your important work. Thanks, Dale, for giving me so much of your time today. And hopefully very soon it will be safe for us to gather and have a conversation like this in person.
Yes, hope so. Thank you.
Okay, many blessings, Dale.